Welcome to Keeping It Real, Sages Over 70. I'm Krista Gibson, your host. My guest today is Lynn Andrews, which I think many of you will remember from, my gosh, back in the 80s when she came out with her Medicine Woman series. And she had studied with two women shamans in Canada, Agnes Whistling Elk and Ruby Plenty Chiefs. You know, I used to know those names really well back when I had read those books, but it's been a while. And Lynn is actually initiated as a member of the Sisterhood of the Shields. That's 44 women who are healers and shamans from a variety of cultures, including Panama, Guatemala, Australia, Nepal, North America, and the Yucatan. And now Lynn is recognized as a shaman and a mystic and continues to give classes and readings and trips. And she's come out with 21 books so far. And most recently, her Power Deck has been reissued and updated, and it's just lovely. Can be used as an oracle deck or as a meditation tool. And also her Sacred Vision oracle cards that are equally as beautiful. So today we want to talk to Lynn, and she has such a diverse and deep, rich background. We're only going to be able to touch on a few things, but that's okay. But to find out more about kind of how she got to where she is, and maybe get her to talk a bit about some of the struggles and challenges that she ran into and how she overcame them. So join me now as we visit with Lynn Andrews and see what she can share with us. Welcome back, everybody, and here's Lynn Andrews. Hi, Lynn.
Hi, Krista. This is so much fun.
It is. Isn't technology awesome that we can meet like this and then share with all these people? It's awesome.
It's incredible. Yeah. I mean, there you are. I just can't believe it. And you were just here, and I missed you.
I couldn't believe that I was just in Cave Creek and didn't know you were there. So let's talk a bit about, you have done so much. You have at least 21 books and your oracle decks and all the things you've done. And I think one of the questions that I think people would love to know about is like making that shift from being a student, and we'll talk about, you know, the sisterhood and all that in a minute, but making that shift from being a student to them being a teacher.
Yes.
You know, because so many people try to do that. And can you kind of talk about that a bit, how you did that?
Well, I will, because that's kind of a leap of faith here. You know, I was living in Beverly Hills and married to a man who became one of the heads of Warner Brothers. I have a daughter, Vanessa, and I was living a life that many people would just love to live. Right. And I had special abilities when I was young. I could see lights around people. I could see their pain, maybe their ill health, dis-ease. So I saw that by the time I was 6 years old. And one day we were riding to school on our ponies, and I looked at Beverly and I said, "You've had a very hard morning." And she says, "What are you talking about?" And I can see the red around her. She was angry. She was frightened. And she'd been beaten up pretty badly by her dad. You know, it was a pretty well-known alcoholic in town. So she became horrified that I could see her. Right. She felt invaded, you know. Right. And I almost lost her as a friend. And as a result of that, I started hiding myself. And I, you know, pretended that I was somebody else. Right. Which a lot of us do, and it creates god-awful stress on your body and on your life. You know, if you have special abilities of any kind, you know, people, they know who's calling on the telephone. Right. You know, and they have a sense of maybe history and maybe prophecy. Right. So you don't need to hide that. You just need to find friends who understand who you are. Right, right. And so somewhere in there you were able to make the transition from being a student to becoming a teacher,
Was it just a kind of a natural transition for you, or was it difficult?
Well, I wasn't even a student in, way back.
Right,
I was
right.
simply, I don't know. I was a student in the sense that I read everything I can get my hands on.
Right,
And
right.
nobody could tell me really what was going on with me.
Right.
And finally, I met Agnes Whistling Elk and
Right.
Ruby Plenty Chiefs.
Right.
And they became my teachers.
Right.
And I ended up working with them in Manitoba, in the northern part of Canada. And I kind of left my life behind. I took care of my daughter, and I don't want to say, for a person to study with someone that they have to leave their life. I think I was a special situation, and I would never say to anyone, you need to leave your life. I would say stay in your life, because then you walk with a foot in two worlds. You walk in the physical and a foot in the spiritual. It's a good thing. And so I went and started working with Agnes and Ruby, and it was years before they told me. I remember this so clearly. It was so. I had rented my house. My daughter was in school, and I had gone up there. I had very little money in those days, and I drove up to meet Agnes and Ruby because Agnes has asked me to stay with her for a couple of years. So I had prepared. I was so excited. I got there in the night, and I came running down the hill towards her cabin, and she was sitting around a fire, which is kind of unusual for her that time of the year. And she stood up when I got to her, and she said, "What are you doing here?" And she says, "You're not Indian. What are you doing here?" And I said, "Agnes, what are you talking about? You've asked me to come stay with you."
Right.
Said, "Oh, no. You aren't going to come stay with me."
Oh, no.
And I said, "Oh, my God, what do you mean?" And she stood up and very dramatically lifted her fingers to the sky, and she said, "Let the eagles fly. Take your stories about us and your magnificent learning and take it to your people." And I got mad then. I said,
bet you did.
Thank you. You have told me never to say anything to anyone about your existence. So I would tell people, "Oh, I'm going to Hawaii," and I'd come back white as a sheet because I'd been in the snow somewhere.
No Hawaiian tan.
And so I said, "What do you expect me to do? You want me to go home and stand on a soapbox?" And then is when she told me, "No, you're going to write the first book about our work together." And I was just stunned. I was horrified. I said, and she says, "Now, you leave." And she's very tough with me. A lot of people don't understand the way that she taught me, but to be honest with you, I see it now. That's the way I had to learn. She would push me in a way that I couldn't resist it. And, so I left, furious. I had rented my house out with an ironclad lease. My daughter was in school. I didn't know what to do. And I ended up getting a very tiny cabin up north of, in the mountains by a little river, and it was quite wonderful. But I must say that they really disrupted me.
Sounds like.
Well, you have your props, your phone, and you have your email, and you have all of these things that we plug into, plus your friends.
Right.
My mother and everything. And I didn't have any of it. I walked away from. So I wrote Medicine Woman, to make a very long story short. And I learned a lot about writing. I'd always read. My dad was part of the Nobel family, and he had, thank God, well, my mother too. I mean, they had educated me. I had been reading books, or they had been reading to me since I was born. So I had an education, and now you put something together. It's kind of like our life. You have a foundation, you have an idea, you kind of do an outline that, as you well know, and then you write to that outline.
Exactly. So I have a question okay, I remember when your books came out, I read them, I reviewed them, and, I remember all of that. We met at that time somewhere in there. And I know that you went through some difficult times because there were people who didn't believe that these women were real. And that you made up the whole thing and you just did it to sell a bunch of books and so on. My question to you is, how did you handle that? I mean, that is a huge possible potential block to what you were trying to accomplish. So how did you work with that?
I don't know how I lived through that, but I've got to tell you that you have to have something behind you, strength in your body mind. You have this brain that is a fabulous, thing, but you also have a body mind around your navel where you really have all wisdom and all knowledge. And I had a lot of strength, and thank God, I had a very strong sense of who I was. Believe it or not. So when I wrote Medicine Woman, I was so in love with the native world, and so in love with it and what it had been. And I wanted to honor Agnes and Ruby and what they did, and I was honoring them. It was a book really about honoring the process of following your dream. I had a dream of a lot of things, and being an author and being able to help people in some way and give something beautiful to them. And so when all of a sudden there were a lot of people who, a lot of native people actually, who said, what is this? Who does she think she is? And she's talking about our ceremonies, our this and that. I said, wait a minute. In the very beginning of all of my books, I say, this has nothing to do with Native American or Native anywhere in the world ceremonies. This is an incredible knowledge that was really brought here from the Pleiades, and that's a leap of faith, but it had to have come from somewhere. And it's and is seated here and held in rangas or rolled up papers that have the history and the writings on them, and we've been able to translate that. And there's 7 clay pots, huge clay pots, that these are in. And that's a big, huge stretch of faith. And of course, I cannot produce any of these women. There's 44 of us.
I know, yes.
And these women are mostly from native cultures around the world. And were people to know who they were, they'd be in great danger, really great danger.
Because of their practices or just the...
Yes.
Okay. And
because they're working with me, and because they're doing extraordinary things in the world, being extraordinary people who, and I don't talk about this much, but they did choose to come back here to work with people. And that's, people go, oh my God, this is really off the map. And I went ahead,
Right.
and I would have people run up on the stage and grab my microphone, and they were drunk and scared me half out of my
I'll
wits,
bet.
and then I would sit and talk with someone like that.
Mm-hmm.
And I would say, the first thing I'd say, have you ever read my books? Of course not. I wouldn't read your books. And I said, if you did, you'd realize this is not about the native world.
Right.
It's my love and respect for that world.
Right.
And then this cosmic consciousness came to us.
Mm-hmm.
And I share that with you in my experiences throughout my books. And of course, some of these experiences are hard to believe.
Mm-hmm.
And yet, if you think to yourself, if I had a teacher, you, Krista, if you had a teacher and they wanted you to learn about self-worth,
Mm-hmm.
because they would feel maybe you don't have any self-worth.
Mm-hmm.
So now she could just tell me that,
Mm-hmm.
or like Soila did, she took me through the jungles after a rain, and Soila is from southern Mexico, Guatemala, and in those areas, and a woman of high degree. And she would teach me. She's part of the Sisterhood of the Shields, and she didn't say a word to me about my self-worth. She just took me to this La Caldera in the middle of the jungle, or it's like a jungle to me,
Uh-huh.
and it's a canyon, and we just kind of came on it really quickly, and she said, now, you're going to follow me down that little tiny path over there to the bottom of La Caldera. I have a gift for you. And I'm looking at this trail, thousands of feet on both sides, scared, ugh.
Yeah. Oops. There you are. You froze for a section. So you were looking down, it was thousands of feet?
Yes.
Yes. Wow.
Thousands of feet, my God. And a little trail that it had rained the night before, and it was slippery, and I was wearing huaraches that are sandals, that were kind of flipping on and off my feet. And she said, you follow me, or you will never see any of us in the sisterhood ever again.
Wow.
And I knew it was true.
Right.
I mean, they meant it.
Right.
They say something like that, you follow them.
They mean it, yeah.
Followed her down, about halfway down, slipping and sliding. Oh, my God. It was an experience. I was just terrorized.
I'll bet.
And there was this nicho in the side of the wall of this canyon, and there was the most gorgeous ruby sitting there. And she said, as she came back up the trail, she was way ahead of me. She said, you take that. That's a gift for you. And then she disappeared again. And I looked at this ruby, and it was so beautiful. And I thought, I can't. What if I fall? What if I lose it? What if, I said, I don't deserve that.
Uh-oh.
And I left it there. Which made Soila incredibly unhappy.
I'll bet.
I got down to the bottom of La Caldera, and I see her leaning against a tree, sitting on the ground. She said, come. So I came towards her, and suddenly the earth was sliding out from under me, and I said, I had stepped into quicksand.
Oh, no.
Yes. And I'm sure your listeners are going, what? But I did. I stepped into quicksand, and she watched me as I was struggling. I knew that you're not supposed to move, but I kept sinking. I was scared to death. And I said, Soila, you've got to help me. Come on. Enough's enough.
Right.
I followed you down here. And she said, I will not help you until you understand your lack of self-worth. She said, you left that gift up there because you didn't feel you deserved it. And you deserve it more than anyone. When are you going to realize that? We talked for a couple of hours, scared to death that I don't dare move.
Right.
I mean, that came up to my waist. And she let me just stand there. And finally, I realized, she said, you're in the quicksand of life. This is what you're doing. You won't make movement towards who you truly are and heal yourself so that then you can work with others. You can't work with others till you heal yourself.
Right.
And that's what it was, a whole experience of, going through my fear of heights,
right,
which of course has to do with being hugely successful.
Right.
A lot of people are terrified of that, and rightly so. You got to be ready for that.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And then, not receiving the gift, I'm not good enough. And it went on down. And I get fucking quicksand, which was like what was happening in my life.
Exactly. So how did she get you out of the quicksand? Did she just eventually, did it just...
Just threw me a pole and pulled me out.
That's funny.
But you see what she did.
Absolutely. Yeah, she taught you through an actual experience.
And an extraordinary experience.
Yes, absolutely.
I'm telling it very well, but it was absolutely amazing.
So I'm curious, the women, the 44 women, all the stuff that's going on today, especially related to people of color and women and families from Latin America and all of that. What is there work being done by the sisterhood to try to balance this, to try to heal it? I mean, there must be.
Every night.
Okay.
And we work, another leap of faith here, we work in the dream time. And in the dream time, there are luminous fibers that are holding you together and all of us. And you have this luminous fiber matrix around you, and then those fibers move out into the world. So when you speak a thought, thoughts are formed of the words that we speak, and vice versa. And these thoughts, things that you say, should be so carefully discerned, particularly now.
Yes.
And think about what you so-called believe in. Is that belief a fence around your consciousness, or what? Why would you believe in one thing and not another? And what does belief mean anyway? And it involves a lot of judgment and so forth. Perhaps it's very important for people today to be in their sacred witness. And that sacred witness merely just looks at the play of life. Oh my golly, look at that, look at that. But you don't rush to judgment. In fact, one of the reasons that I did this deck of cards, which, can you see that?
Hold it up a little higher. Yeah. Okay. Yes. Beautiful. Yes. I love that one. Yes.
Oh, and and what's on the back of it is the teaching about focus. And today, I think we need to focus. Let me just read very quickly, just a little bit of it. Much of what you see in life is an agreement that something is, in fact, true. To develop power, focus on one aspect of your life. And this could be your career, a sport, some endeavor that you have a passion about. Become an expert. In the process of becoming an expert, you fine-tune your whole being. And it goes on and on.
Yeah,
and
it's beautiful. Yeah, the whole deck is lovely. So Lynn, we're coming close to the end of our time. Can you tell us what are some of the things you're doing now? Because I know at your website, lynnandrews.com,
yes.
But tell us, you do personal readings, and you're doing a cruise. What else are you up to?
Yeah, I do personal readings, which I love working with people. I try to do just one a day, and so that I can kind of collect my forces with people. And I do healing through that. And when I say healing, I work with the heart and the mind. And I don't do hands-on healing anymore. I used to, but I don't now. And there's a whole story around that. And I think I talk about it in my book, Love and Power. And by the way, let me just tell you quickly, if you go up on Amazon and order this book, which is just out, you can get your deck, and it will focus into Amazon's, reading list.
Yes.
It helps it. It's like being on the New York Times.
Right. Yeah, it helps with the ranking and all of that. So what is this cruise that you're doing? You're doing a cruise?
I am. We've done a couple in Egypt, and this one starts in Prague, in Eastern Europe. And I feel that so many of the people in this country have come through the gateways in Europe. No matter if they're from Africa or anywhere, they come through that Eastern European gateway.
Right.
Maybe through Europe, maybe into Ireland and Scotland, or who knows, wherever you go. And I thought, wouldn't it be great to do a lovely cruise down the Blue Danube, and to move into access our history, our ancestors that are around us, influencing so much of what we do.
Right.
We don't know about them because we first said, hey, I'm here. I'm going to listen to you.
That's lovely.
Yes.
So people should go to your website, lynnandrews.com, and there's all kinds of great things there, and you can sign up for your newsletter and all kinds of things in your events and everything that you're doing. So I encourage people to do that.
If they say that they heard about me on your show, I will give a free MP3 if you call in the next few days. You have to go up on my website.
Right.
Go into the Shaman shopping, a little area, and tell them that I was on your show.
Okay.
And they will send you an MP3.
Perfect. That's wonderful. Thank you so much for your time. We could go on forever, I know. But I'm just so glad to have this opportunity to spend some time with you, and I so wish you success, continued success in everything you're doing. Really very needed in today's world, that's for sure.
That is for sure. Just don't forget to pray.
That's right.
Follow your dreams.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Lynn. Take care now.
Thank you, Krista.
Bye.
Bye-bye.